Hello and welcome back to the Play on Words podcast from Big City Readers. It's Miss Beth, and I'm so excited. Today I'm here with my favorite Beth, Beth Rosenbleeth of Days with Gray, who needs no introduction, but is everyone's hero on specifically morning invitations or breakfast invitations, I should say, and how to get your time back. Like just have a hot cup of coffee or tea. Beth, you drink tea, not coffee, right?
Do drink tea. I talk a lot about
Okay.
coffee, but I do drink tea.
Okay. And today we're talking, I know I interrupted my introduction of you, but today we're talking about one of the things that she is a super expert in among many. And that is, well, we're talking about a couple of things. Kids going to camp, prepping kids for camp from like a early childhood development standpoint, and also specifically the fears of having a kid with allergies going to camp. She is, if you have a kid with allergies, she's going to become your best friend. Or if you have a child in general, her activities will become your favorite thing. So, Beth, hi, thanks for being here.
That was quite the intro. I feel like I'm an expert of all things. I appreciate all that.
I really should write down my intros before I do them because then I just kind of ramble and I'm like, oh, and she's actually I'm kind of like a foot taller than her. And actually we're friends in real life. We've hung out multiple times. She's been to my house, you guys.
Yes, yes. I know all her
Okay,
secrets.
you do know all my secrets. Remember when you opened my pantry and it was all books?
That's one of my favorite things about you.
Thank you. Okay, so you just dropped your boys. Well, I guess is there anything that you want to add about yourself before we jump in? I was going to say you just dropped your boys off at camp and you're in a unique situation. Do you want to talk about that, or is there anything you want to
Yeah.
add before we start talking about camp?
Yeah, I'll say that I am not an expert in packing for camp. My
Hmm.
kids have actually, this is their first camp experience. Up until this point, we've done a day camp in our neighborhood that you can sign up for any week, and it's like a drop in. And we've done a half day camp in the area, but uh, there's two reasons to that. One, when you have three kids, to put three kids into camp, it is wildly expensive. And
Mm.
then two, um, to attend camp with a food allergy is a whole nother level. So we are here at a town right now because I had found my child a food allergy camp where all the campers, there's just about 40 of them, but they all have food allergies, and siblings are invited because the family who started it had a child with food allergies, and they know that like if one child has a food allergy, it really the whole family is affected by the lifestyle. So it's been
I love.
wonderful.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Okay, so there's so many things I already want to jump into. The reason I I remember that I wanted to have this conversation is because you were posting about packing for camp, and it started giving me all these memories of like packing for family vacations in general, from my childhood. And I was impressed with like how you let your kids kind of have that independence, but not surprised because you do share a lot about how to teach your kids life skills. And I think you have a great resource on that, right? So we can link
Yes,
that.
I
Um,
do.
but two, the summer camp thing, I think is like a kind of a debate for people figuring out what their kids can do. So
Mhm.
will you and I love also that these food allergy camps exist. Like the people that run these, so is it niche or niche um
Oh,
organizations? Which way do you say it?
I think it's tomato, tomato.
Okay, but does anyone
Pick your.
say tomato?
That's a good question. Probably not.
Because I always say niche, but I just saw this phrase that says your riches are in your niches.
Yeah, I think there's a correct way. I just don't think that's what I'm an expert on.
Ye I think it's what people expect me to be an expert on, and unfortunately, I don't know. But my little sister has epilepsy, and she went to an epilepsy camp as well, and it's just, like, it's so amazing. I think that people don't think about unless Well, I guess this is like life, right? Unless you have someone you love that has experienced that kind of hardship, you don't think of that thing that's needed. But so the people that make an allergy friendly food camp or a food allergy friendly camp or a epilepsy friendly camp, like that see, for my little sister, it's like, okay, regular things that you might have at camp, like big lights, loud music, like all these things, or counselors that aren't
Uh,
medically trained, all those things you don't get to have that regular experience. So I know firsthand have to deal with that fear every day of what your child goes through. So I'm so happy that he gets to do that and that his brothers get to go with him. How how old are each of your boys they're all there? It's all sleepaway for a week and they're all there?
No. Okay. So this
Oh,
is the thing. It's a day camp. It's a day
oh,
camp,
okay.
but what makes this a little bit more camp traditional is that it's hosted in a camp facility. So they have like the
Oh.
archery, the zip lining, they went on a banana boat. They did this giant water slide into the lake. So when I say this is their first traditional camp experience, I'm talking in those terms, but I dropped them off and I picked them up. And it's not sleepaway camp. And in a way, when you have a food allergy or something that you have in your life that consumes your thinking, any decision you make is around what you need to think about. So, for example, like he has this food allergy, so he says no to a lot of opportunities
Mm,
in his mind. It's like, well, they know I have a food allergy. Do they know how to handle it? What if I get served the wrong thing? And even he is incredible with his food allergy. He manages it extremely well, but the fear never really leaves you. And so in a way I wanted him, but he's one of those kids who really benefits from heavy work, the lifting, the jumping, the bouncing, the moving those big gross motor muscles. And so I knew as his parent that he would truly love camp. And
mm.
I felt in a way that starting with this camp would also help lead him to like other camp opportunities down the road, because he will understand how great of an experience camp is for him and how it really does fit his needs. Picked him up, he was like, I love camp.
Oh,
And it's really hard for him to let the guard down and express how excited he was. And it was really, really nice to see.
oh, good. So, okay, so your two older boys, or so are all three of them there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And
Yeah, there is. They were they're 10, 9, and 7.
okay. Oh, that's amazing that all of them. Oh my gosh, how fun that they get to go together. And so you found this camp, you drove there, and you're like kind of like made it a vacation. You're staying in a hotel, and then wow, that's fun. So they get to go to this day camp, and then they get to stay in the hotel with you every night.
That's right. Yes. And so that's where you and I come into this conversation, because we have 5 in one hotel room. And as you can
Oh,
imagine, I think you said you had similar experiences when you were a kid.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so the reason I was like I had all these thoughts when I saw you posting about letting your kids pack because I am from a big family. So I did go to camp a few times, and when I was in high school I went for a longer time, like the whole summer, but family vacations, so you're kind of having like this is I feel like people are bowing down to you because it's one thing to like get your kids to camp, but another thing to get yourself on a family vacation, and you did both in the same time, which cannot be an easy thing to do. But so I was looking at you posting about what your kids were packing, and I had this like memory of my childhood of family vacations. I have a huge family. There's like 10 kids, and we would drive to the same place every year that was 18 hours away, but like packing was not like okay, like it was like here's what you pack: one swimsuit, one pair of shorts, one pair of sandals, like, and you wear the same sandals the whole time. It's not stopping for food. It's like pulling through McDonald's, and I remember my mom saying like 10 sausage biscuits, and I hated sausage biscuits, and so I would just eat the bread. But I mean, like, you have to like run it like an army. And I imagine, I mean, like now as an adult, I'm like, yeah, you had to be that like strict, but you let your kids pack their things. And I was like, wow, how do you stay calm in that and not be like, no, that's too much stuff. So can you give us some advice or tell us about your process?
Yeah. Okay. So, how my brain works, how I need to live life is like I have to also scale it down. So when it comes to packing or little tips and tricks that I create along the way, it really comes to down to like my mind can only focus on one thing at a time, even though it
Mm.
wants to focus on 20,000. So when my son comes down and my youngest is just full of life. He like loves life. He loves things. He loves experiences. And he is going through a huge phase. He's 7, so I know this phase is gonna end shortly, but he's in this phase of taking care of his bear,
Oh,
and he brings his bear places, and he packs his bear, like, lunch, and he'll take it very seriously, like, "Did you feed him when I was gone?" You know what I mean? It is like he is the best parent.
oh,
And and I'm nurturing this because 2 reasons. 1, he's so invested in it. And 2, because I also know he'll blink and all of a sudden he'll be on to something else. And I want him to like fully feel whatever he wants to feel in this. So he comes down and he has a backpack that weighs probably 40 pounds on his back. He has a suitcase stuffed with books and stuff, and then he has an additional backpack that's on wheels with more stuff. And his thinking was that he like planned for his own activities, obviously, right? He's
right.
kid blogger child, so he's like packing his supplies, and then on top of it he's packing for his bear, right? So there's these like little magnetic tile dinosaurs in there. There's probably 7 cat comic kid books. Like, you could imagine how heavy that is. So
Oh my gosh.
I know. And knowing his personality, if I were to just say no, absolutely not, we're only taking what we can, that's also not going to work. So I looked at him and I saw this like clear plastic bin over to the side, and I said, how about this? What if you everything that is, that you must take and you really feel is necessary, if it fits in this bin, you can take it. And the bin was plastic and it had a plastic lid, and it was just this perfect size to have enough stuff but not too much. And that idea clicked with him, so I sat down on the carpet with him. And that's the other thing, when we think about big tasks, they are really big. Think about when, there's too many dishes in the sink, or like you have so many mounds of laundry. I mean, no matter what age you are, a lot of one thing is overwhelming. So I
Yeah.
sat down with him on the carpet and I said, okay, well, let's go through this bag first. And we literally made piles, like, and I would hold something up, be like, what do you think about this? Do we need it? No. Okay. Do we need it? And he made all the decisions, but sometimes you just need that guide to walk you through. And then in the end, we ended up with a suitcase and a bin of toys. And he has like this journal he wants to write in and colored pens. So it's not just toys, but it's all things that he finds entertaining in his downtime. And helping him manage that on his own is a life skill that hopefully will, if we keep practicing, that he can do it more independently as time goes on.
Yeah, I think that people forget because, parents have to remember a million things, but,
Mhm.
I think people forget that, like, these moments, it's not like, oh, let's just pack and get going." Like, their
Mhm.
life there is being formed in these tiny moments, and, like, how they see themselves and how they do everything for the rest of their life, like, you're helping them figure that out right now, which is terrifying and also exciting.
It is. It's exciting and it's exhausting, because I was telling you on the phone, when I was finally done with everything, because that's just one part of it. When I was finally done with everything, my throat felt really tight. Like, it felt hard to take a deep breath. And so
Yeah.
there is something to be said for the load that comes with that. It's not it's not easy. And so I think as a parent too, it's to make the decision of which ones are worth the battle, which ones are worth
Mhm.
the help, which ones have more of a long term. And I think that's where it comes down to saying yes over no, or trying to say yes more often, is because like when if you just kind of picture that same situation 5 years from now, how will saying yes help or hurt? And it may do both. You have to just think about it.
People
But
listening must think that you are like the most patient woman in the world.
oh, yeah, I'm just, Mary Poppins.
Uh,
No, not at all. I think no. Taking the load of parenting is a lot. And right now it's just funny you say that, because if we really want to break it down, uh I'm sitting in a conference room right now. My children are at camp. I just finished working out because I'm by myself. So yeah, right now I'm the most patient person. But and I think that's an important part. But the next week, we're back for the rest of the summer with all of us, me being the primary caregiver. So
yeah.
it's not always super calming and relaxing, but focusing on, that one. For summer, for example, I like to say, pick one word. How do you want summer to feel? And then guide all your decisions based off of that one word that you chose. And I think that's similar to anything in life.
Yeah. Wow. Um, okay, so that just reminded me of my sister. My sister obviously would not, I say to her that she's like the most patient parent ever. And she's like, I don't feel like it. I feel like I lose my cool every minute and like I'm like ruining everything. But
Mhm.
she said, I think every parent feels like that. That's why I shared it. It's not like it's a secret that, she,
Right.
I think everyone always feels like that. But she said, I was over there the other day holding her baby. She has 4 kids. And she said that she started when her kids say like, "Come see this," she just immediately, no matter what she's doing, goes and looks at it. And she's like, "It's easier because otherwise they're going to keep asking and I'm going to say in 1 minute when I finish this." And so she's like, it's just easier for me, like even if she's like in the middle of cooking, in the middle, she just gets up. If she's feeding the baby, she just gets up and goes to see what it is. And she said that that has made her life easier because like they're going to keep asking, and so she just does it. She just goes to see what it is that they want to show her. And it's, I think it's that idea of like, what are your no's and what are your yeses? Like, are your no's actually making your own life harder? And like kind of like navigating that. So like,
Mhm.
why do you think that you like felt stressed? Because you were like, let's just finish this up, or because you were like, this is an important moment, or like you just had a lot to do, or can you like after the fact of packing, can you figure out like why that was a lot?
Yeah, well, part of it does come with, so for us, for this camp, we have to pack a lunch. So you're thinking, okay, you're staying in a hotel, uh, but I also have to bring food. And then because it's a food allergy camp, a lot of the main allergens are not allowed. So obviously nuts and peanuts were not allowed. But sesame wasn't allowed, and then no dairy. So like a cheese sandwich is out, no mayonnaise.
Oh,
So it was a
wow.
lot of thinking, okay, well, what does that mean? And it made me really empathize too with other families who have a child who like will only eat peanut butter jelly sandwich. And then I know you go to a school and they're like, no peanut butter. And you immediately as a parent, you're like, but my kid will not eat if they don't eat this because this is all they eat. So I acknowledge that that is something that can feel really, really stressful. And at the same time, I had to think about, okay, well, we have to pack lunches. So I ended up going with pasta and tomato sauce. So every day in the hotel, I'm, boiling up some water and
Oh
just,
my God.
you'll actually crack up at this. So I have two thermoses with like the lids, the ones, the heavy duty ones. And so I give one to one child and one to the other, but I
Oh
only
my
had two
God.
and I didn't get to buy a third. So my middle child I've been going down and getting two coffee cups from the lobby, and I'm putting his pasta in there with two coffee cup lids. And and
Oh,
the other day he was like, can I not have the coffee cups? I was
oh
like,
my gosh. The middle one said that?
I know. Yeah,
Oh.
the middle child. I was like, I know. I'm gonna go look into getting you one. But I think it's just with that, as parents, we are always just trying to figure out solutions, right? And that was like the solution that quickly came to my mind because I didn't have any other way to prepare his food. But to go back your initial question, it's the food packing too. A lot comes with
Mhm.
having a food allergy because any trip you go on, you're thinking, okay, I need to know where the hospitals are. And I need
Mm.
to know restaurants in advance where, you know, we took one city trip and I have to call around to see if there's peanuts in the kitchen. And I called one restaurant and they were hungry. You know, you can't get to this point where you need a restaurant. I call and I overheard the hostess say, "Ah, I'm so tired of this question."
Oh,
And she handed the phone off to someone else. I know. And you're just, you know, so it takes a lot of work to go into a new city. Now, I will say, because I knew I was going to this camp and staying in this hotel with other families that have food allergy, it took a little bit of the stress away from me, just knowing I was like amongst other people that feel the same way, rather than when we go on a family vacation, it's kind of like you're on your own island.
yeah.
But it was the packing, it's the food prep, and then on top of it, it's the camp. You know, they want you to label everything. And if you don't think of that in advance, if you don't have fabric labels, you know, you just kind of
Oh
have to
my
wing that too with the good old Sharpie and painter's tape.
gosh, this is so much for this is wow, for 1 week of their life, but you're making memories.
Exactly. I
Okay.
think it's interesting. We live in such a modern world where we have Amazon and we can solve all of our problems. And sometimes it's fun just to remember the basics, right? So they each have a duffel bag. So I didn't have any labels made, but it's the old tie a ribbon on the end trick, right?
Yeah.
You know, and each kid has a favorite color, so it's pretty easy. And it's funny how you have kids and things kind of match their personality. So or like we didn't just to pack. We're rolling up clothes and just sticking a little rubber band around it and labeling them Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And I just think sometimes we live in a world where we're just ordering things to solve problems. But in the end, if we think about our childhood or like how our families prepared for a trip, those habits can still exist. Those patterns can still exist for the good, you know? I mean, the ribbon on the bag trick has been working.
I love it. My that reminded me of my mom always put us in neon scrunchies. There was mostly
Yes.
girls in our family, so that she would see us when we went to like anywhere, she could like spot us. Or she always put us in matching clothes, and she said, because
Yes.
if I lost one of you, I could say she's wearing this outfit.
Always.
Yeah.
In the oh yeah, that's so funny. If she didn't know which child she was losing. But
Yeah.
totally in the early years when we would take day trips, I always put them in the same shirt. It
Smart.
just, you know, it's the teacher head count, right? As you were a
Yes.
former teacher too. We're always like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And
Exactly.
yeah, that's brilliant. I love the scrunchie too.
The scrunchie, because you can spot them, and like because you know like how police will say like don't start shouting a child's name, shout what they're wearing.
Right.
And like you can literally, or like I remember seeing like some like investigator tip be like, take a picture of your child if you're going to like an amusement park so you have exactly what they're wearing. And
I love that.
and that's like so smart of my mom in the 90s to be like, no, they're all wearing the same outfit, so if one's gone, it's like this is exactly the outfit they're wearing.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
um so yeah, so many things. And you know what is funny though? You also posted a tip, a trick that I think a lot of people will relate to. And that is you have a wagon in your car to get all your stuff into the hotel.
Yeah, and that was funny because as I was bringing, I said to my husband, "We're gonna bring the wagon," and he's like, "They have the dollies," and I said, "Yeah, but we're just gonna bring the wagon." And I'm so glad we did because not only did it help bring everything into the room, but now it acts. You know, our room is not tiny. It's one of those hotel suite rooms that have a little kitchenette area, but at the same time, there's nowhere to put your stuff. So now the wagon is against the wall, and that's where in our case that's where the food can be stored, and also bathing suits and towels, so it kind of just acts as like another set of drawers or a counter space.
Smart. You're so smart.
Yeah. You know, worst case scenario, you realize you didn't need the wagon, you just fold it up and put it back in your trunk for the rest of the trip, so
Yeah.
it
And
fits.
yeah, that's if it fits, that's great. I literally But that's funny because because there were so many of us, I hope my mom doesn't listen to my podcast because she's gonna be like, "You outed me." But I remember it would be like we would all stay in the car and it would be like 3 to a duffel bag because they didn't wanna draw attention that we had 2 rooms, like conjoining rooms, and, somebody was on the floor, like, it's just, pile in, and my mom would be very much like, "Don't we don't wanna draw attention to being the people with all the kids here." Like, we were, like, very, like, stay in line, single file, stay in line, single file. So we would, like, not all go into the hotel. She would go in, do the check-in, and then we would, like, go in and then bring our stuff in later. Like, my dad would go get the rest of the stuff later because we didn't wanna, like, make a big deal that there were too many kids in the rooms.
Oh my, that is wonderful.
Well,
That's
because you also like, you can't put kids alone in
right,
other rooms, so, like, what were they gonna do? They couldn't have more than 2 rooms. So
right,
I don't know,
right.
but it's so different, like, I think I have, like, a little bit of PTSD about it as an adult because I get, like, so stressed before I go on a road trip, like, "Oh, no, what if I have to go to the bathroom?" And whoever I'm
Mhm,
with will always be like, "Well, then we'll stop." And I'm like, "Oh,
mm.
okay."
That
Or like, I'm like, well, I don't even know how to pack because I'm like, I try to like keep everything. I never have checked a bag, not once in my life. And I like, even if I go to another country for multiple weeks, it's like whatever you can fit in your carry-on or your backpack. Cause it's like, I'm a minimalist to
love
my
that.
core now, but I never have anything to wear.
Well, yeah, and then you end up buying stuff there, and then you can't bring it home.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. I'm the person on the plane that's like wearing like 4 sweatshirts because I couldn't fit it in my bag.
That's so funny. Well, and you just reminded me that's one thing as a food allergy family that we've learned to do. It's so hard to find restaurants that are safe, and you just don't know where you are. But we always look for grocery stores, and that has been really helpful because you can
Oh,
find a
yeah.
familiar brand or something, and then also to the boys like to walk around, so it gives
Oh, yeah.
both, right? Where if we went to a restaurant, we'd just sit again, but this allows them to walk and get some leg work in and then get back in the car. So,
Oh, that's so smart. Stop at a grocery store, not at a restaurant.
yeah, right. They just have to remember that they're not grocery shopping. That somehow sometimes you get to the register and you're like, okay, everyone just gets well, that's the other thing. You get to pick one thing. And that's another life skill, right? Like you want one thing, go pick one thing or two things.
That is so brilliant, actually, that's a good life skill. I feel like that is the biggest hack right now, like, I'm like, "End the podcast." I'm just kidding, we have a lot to talk about still, but, like, to stop I feel like that's, like, groundbreaking. Stop at a grocery store instead of
Yeah,
a restaurant, let the kids like, maybe you give them a limit, like, "Here's $10," and
right.
even there's so many more life skills, depends on, like, how much parenting you wanna do, but, like, if you wanna talk about, like, okay, what's gonna fill you up? Like,
Yep.
and, like, kind of, like, letting them learn those lessons, like, okay, what's something with protein in it? And, like, they, like, go look through the store for something with protein. They learn to, like, listen to their body and to, like, figure out what's gonna feel good. Okay, I'm not gonna be able to eat for a couple of hours. That like, there's so many life skills. What do I have enough money to buy? Like, what do I want something cold or hot? Like, there's so many things that you could learn in that tiny moment in the same amount of time you could spend in the grocery store that you would spend sitting at the table waiting for your food.
100%. And a lot of grocery stores now, they may have a cold bar, they may have a hot bar, they may have a sandwich bar. So where it would be a little harder for a food allergy kid just to have it all, my middle like loves a sub, right? Or
Mm.
we'll go to Fresh Market and they go to the hot bar. So you're right. There's many conversations about what would make sense. And there's been many times where it was, well, maybe next time I'll do that a little bit differently.
Yeah, I would love it. And, like, learning from mistakes, and yeah,
Exactly.
it's amazing. Um, okay, so I wanted to ask you about your child with food allergies. Do they feel anxiety about it going to new places? Are they just more aware of it? Do they, like, express, like, the panic that they feel, or do they, like, know what to do in an emergency situation? How does that work?
Well, the anxiety really never leaves anybody who has anything that they always need to think about. And he won't always. it's hard to explain, but like he won't appear maybe anxious, but you can, as a parent or someone who knows him closely, yes, absolutely. And at the same time, he has learned how to manage his allergies so well. So from very early on, we just have always said, you just eat your own food, because it was more of an easy guarantee that there would be no human error. So he is at 10, he is so great about being in a situation. And we're talking a lot about now of him making the decision of whether or not, if we're at a party, like maybe there's a bag of popcorn or something,
Mhm.
it's a lot of conversation now as he's getting older of him making the decision if he feels good about it. But this is like an example. So we took two cars here, and when my oldest was in my husband's car and they stopped at Kroger, and he called me about a guacamole, and
Okay.
they showed me a picture, and I said, I don't really know right now. I'm driving and I don't think we've had that brand. And he immediately said, okay, well, I'll just read the ingredients and I'll check the website. And
Wow.
you're like, exactly. Like, yeah. So now it's not that he will be in a new situation and overly anxious. The anxiousness never leaves how you will feel always, but at the same time, he has enough resources and he has enough habits that he can decide from himself how to make a good decision based off of everything he's learned in the past 10 years. So when he said check the website, stuff like that makes me feel really confident that he will be able to navigate this for his life.
How old is he?
He's 10.
Okay, wow, that's amazing. Good job. This is a serious plug for teaching your kids life skills.
I think a lot of children who have accommodations or needs, they become the best self advocates. Like he knows how to go to a restaurant and ask questions, and that's another habit that we've always tried to have him handle too. Is when he orders his food, let them know about your allergy, because parents won't always be around, right? We want our kids to have these skills so that they can speak up for themselves, or they can take care of their needs when they're with friends or other family members.
Yeah, that reminds me, I always tell parents who get like any sort of diagnosis, usually I work, in academics, but at like a physical diagnosis is the same, it sounds like, because if I work with someone, and they're like, "Oh no, my child was diagnosed with ADHD or dyslexia or something, some sort of learning disability," and it's a panic at first, and I am often like, "No, this is actually great because your child is gonna know how to problem solve so much more than a child who it just comes naturally to, because they from the very beginning are like looking for ways to make sure that what they have what they need, and it feels like it's so hard, and of course it is so hard, but it's often in that situation it's like it's just a different way of living. And these kids, I see them like just being such advocates and so empathetic and understanding of people with all kinds of differences. Like, so your child, has a food allergy, but I believe like wholeheartedly that it makes them see people differently, like that it's they already know, okay, I'm different in this way, and people don't see that when they look at me. So maybe someone else that is like acting this way toward me, maybe they have a sort of difference that I can't see, or like they're just more curious about people being built differently. So I really think like those are like the most empathetic and intelligent kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah, they definitely know what they need and how to navigate the world.
yeah, and that's like all you can ask for as a parent, right?
Right. Right.
Okay, so you're also vacationing. So do you feel like you have to make it a summer trip also, like after you pick them up from camp, or are you like, no, this is like you're at a day camp and the hotel is just our house? Like, how are you navigating that? Are you going to take a different summer trip? Like, talk to us about summer with 3 boys and the endless debate of structured versus unstructured summer fun.
Yeah. So I'd say this is their trip, right? And again, as a family of 5, to go anywhere adds up very quickly. So this has
Yeah.
been the highlight in the conversation of when we go to camp. And my youngest, I picked him up and he was already like, yeah, can you sign this up for the next week? Because he's used to like hearing camps, or
Yeah.
constantly rolling over to the next. So no, this is our family vacation for the summer, and it goes by very quickly. So we really just have July because we're in the Southeast and school will start back up very quickly. But in the beginning of the summer, I like to take a minute to think about this is my system. In terms of like an unstructured summer, I feel like it's unstructured with a purpose. So the first thing I like to do is I like to think about where my problem areas are. So I've never been an early riser. I've always crashed around 3. And so I have built the predictable routine around that. So when the kids were really young, that's why we started something called a breakfast imitation, which is just a simple play prompt for the kids to come down to in the morning so that I was able to wake up a little bit slower and drink my coffee or my tea and prep breakfast as they did something at the kitchen table that was playful and meaningful. And a lot of what you were talking about with your sister of how everybody needs her attention, I do find that when you dedicate about 10 to 15 minutes on the front end of the day or the front
Yes.
end of them getting back from school or the front end of something that's about to start, it fills their bucket and it makes them feel seen and needed. So when they were doing their breakfast invitation, I was making small talk with them from across the room. We were all in it together, which often led them just taking with whatever they were playing with and going and running off and playing. And so now that they're older at 10, 9, and 7, they don't necessarily need me to set up a breakfast invitation, but we've developed the habits of them doing something on their own in the morning rather than screen time. I'm not against screen time, but my next problem, right, was that I crash at 3. So from
Mm.
very early on, I took that mom needs a minute break time and I said, okay, well, that's where you can have your screen time. And so looking at my 2 problem areas and finding solutions for those 2 problem areas first set everything up for success. And then the other thing is I have to move my body. So especially when they were younger, by 10 o'clock, we were all out doing something active together so that I could get my like workout in. And because we built those habits very early, they did stick with us now in the older age. And what's really interesting is now that I have a 10-year-old, since he knows he can't wake up for Nintendo on the weekdays, I mean,
Mhm.
he'll sleep in so late where I'm like, wow, we've reached, this next phase. This is so nice.
Yeah.
Um,
I have a friend who's she's a child and family psychologist, and she always says that so a dysregulated child and a dysregulated parent are dysregulated. A dysregulated adult and a regulated child equals a dysregulated child, but a regulated adult and a dysregulated child equals a regulated child. And what she means is that everything that you want to fix about your child has to start with you. And it sounds like that's what you've figured out. So she's like, essentially, she's like, I had to learn what my problem areas are because that is like the thing setting the tone. It's not like, oh, my child gets cranky at this time. It's like, oh, if I'm not in the headspace to handle that, then it's a big deal. But if I'm in the headspace that I'm like, oh, I know she gets cranky at this time, this is the plan. So you saying, like, I knew that I wasn't a morning person, I crash at 3 o'clock, and that I have to move my body, like those 3 things, taking care of yourself first in those things actually makes things run much more smoothly for your kids. And of course, it's like, this is why, I always say, well, I could tell you what I do, but you need to know like what works for you. Like you pinpointing those 3 things that are like, these are the things that I need. is probably the best thing that you could do for your kids. Like, not like the breakfast invitation is the best thing, or we don't do screen times before this time, but it's like that you figured out these are the three things that I need, and then everything else is a wash. That taking care of yourself, and then like your kids, though, are just so successful because you are regulated by having those three things taken care of.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. And you know, it's easier said than done. It's absolutely a work in progress because you get one thing figured out and then you know you're on to something else. Maybe there's a habit of something you say or something you do that you notice in your children, like you're saying that you realize, you know, maybe I need to work on that. So there's always something to work on, but identifying what you need and where you need some space maybe as a parent or is extremely beneficial to setting up your structured or unstructured summer. So now that they're older, I'm not necessarily setting up activities, especially for my 10 and 9-year old, but they they have a rhythm and routine of when they know what they can do at different parts of the day.
That is so great. And also it's interesting because you probably don't really think about those three things anymore because it's now built in. I was just talking to somebody who one of my friends was like, um, I don't have the same kind of ADHD as you, which there's another episode about ADHD coming out with my friend who is a psychologist, and we break this down. But I, of course, nobody has the same type of anything. But I was like, you know what? I spent so many years getting my routines into place that you just forget that they're habits at this point. Because, I have a couple friends that are like, no, I have ADHD. My morning is like does not run smoothly. And I didn't even realize that I was like, wow, I do have like a flawless morning, but it's because it's almost like a machine. Like I know the exact things that I do for the first hour that I'm awake. And I remember one time actually you even said that to me. You're like, "Why do you get up so early?" You're like, "If I could sleep in, I would." And now I realize I literally was just talking to someone about this morning that I was like, I need that in order to be like effective at my job the rest of the day. I need like this 1 hour of this perfectly machine order of like, drink my coffee, go outside, go for a walk, write down everything in my head, listen to a podcast, read a book. Like I need that whole hour before I can interact with the world. But you practice it for a long time and then all of a sudden you're like, wait, it's just automatic. I didn't even realize that I was doing that. So that's a good reminder for people that are trying to get new habits in with their kids that you
Yeah, and I admire that. I like it. And when I asked you that, it really was in admiration in that it takes a lot of self-discipline to want to form a routine and stick with it when you have more flexibility that you don't have to have
mm.
somebody else waking you up. I know you have a dog, which probably you know does wake up earlier, right?
Yeah, yeah. She would love to go for a walk at 5:15. Um, but I don't usually get out of the house before 6:30 just because of like light. But it's so funny. I think you don't even realize it, but I just like once read that, somebody was like, this is what I do for my routine. I go, I'm gonna try that. And it does make such a difference. I don't know why. Like the earlier hours for me, but isn't that funny? Like everyone is so different. Like the earlier hours for you are not like that.
They're not, but when I'm forced to do it, they do make a great impact. So for example, the bus for us comes extremely early before 7 o'clock.
Oh
And
my gosh.
yeah, so it forces me to be up early and they're out of the house and then I start my day. So there are benefits to it. But when we were all home, it wasn't my favorite, but I do see the benefits of starting your day and getting some time in for yourself before it starts.
Yeah, it's hard though. Okay, so structured versus unstructured, you're like a perfect balance in the middle, it seems. Is there anything that you are like, this is a must, like we must do this summer? This is something that is on our bucket list, or like, do you have like a goal that you set? Like every day I want my kids to do X when we're at home, but everything else they can, you said the thing about no video games in the morning. Are there like any other things that you're like, just this thing, or do you push any academics over the summer? Give us a little peek into the Days with Gray house.
My the biggest for me, summer comes down to those life skills. It also comes down to maybe resetting some things that weren't necessarily working with the school year when for us they're learning a lot on the bus and they're learning a
Mm,
lot from their peers and the schedules coming home from school, everyone's a little bit more moody. So for me in the summer, I really try to appreciate the just scaling back a lot and not being scheduled and allowing them time to sleep in or working on those life skills. If I'm doing something, showing them how to do it, right? So
yeah.
here's how you turn on the washing machine. Here's how, the biggest thing for me, I guess the must do is you must put your plate into the dishwasher after you're done eating it. I'd say that's the thing we're working on the most. But and then I will also say I've always focused on family time, slowing down, but at the same time, if you have a child that has a specific need, one of my children is dyslexic, and I do think for children who need to continue academic help, I do think it is important to stick with a routine or ask somebody that you have been working with, what is the best way that I can continue helping my child over the summer? And not necessarily because of a summer slide or they're going to forget it, but I think that it just will help continue boost their confidence in terms of like when the school year starts again, just to give them a little bit of a and it helps with a little one-on-one time together too.
I love it. You seem to be very, like, grounded. Do you have any tips on how a parent can be as calm and chill as you this summer?
I'm just laughing because, again, can I remind you that I'm in a conference room right now with my children at summer camp and I just worked out. Okay. So, I think the biggest thing to figure out is, again, when you're making the predictable routine, where are your three problem areas? And like you said, telling everybody to do a breakfast invitation doesn't make sense because everybody's problem might not be in the morning. And so the bigger picture is what is not working. If it's
Mm,
working for your child to watch a show, please continue because there
yeah,
is something else in your day that is not working. And we're going to need to rethink that one before we go into the other one. So I think that that plays a huge part in it, thinking about what's not working. And then, some parents are like, well, after camp, it's just not working. Then some do a breakfast invitation then to kind of to unwind. Some do a breakfast invitation during dinner prep to kind of help their child have something to do.
a dinner
So
invitation.
exactly. It's all about finding the problem and then tweaking it a little bit to have the solution.
I love it. Beth, that you are always a wealth of knowledge. Is there anything else that you think people need to know about summer camp, hanging in there in general, parenting 3 boys? Anything you wanna share?
I think parenting in general is one of the most important thing is to look at your own photo reel rather than everything you're seeing on social media. If you scroll through what you have done so far this summer, you will see happy children who have had great life experiences. And it's not about going to the best summer camp. It's not about going on the best vacation. Different seasons call for different things. You may have a different budget one year and in the next you might not. But when it comes down to it, look at your own photos and you will see a lot more joy than you're giving yourself credit for.
Yeah, and I think oops, my sister is calling me. I think that a really good reminder, like, that you just reminded me of something, is, like, to take videos and pictures of, like, what you think is the mundane because like,
Mhm.
that is where childhood is happening, that is where their summer is happening, and, like, the most special things like, I'm super sappy, like, to a fault, but I'm also, like, kind of, like, sometimes, like, "Guys, it's not that sappy," but, I am always, like, taking videos of things and I remember I took this one picture, during, like, 2020. of me and my sister and her oldest going to Trader Joe's together, and I was just like, "This is such a fun day, like, just your big kid," and, she has 3 little brothers, and it was just, like, fun to be with her aunt and mom, like, on just going to the grocery store, and she wrote about that a year later in
Mhm.
school that, like, one of her because she was writing about special people, and she wrote about her aunt, she said and it was like, "What are some of the special things you do?" And she said, "Go to the store together." And,
Mm. So
like, it's
simple.
it's so simple because, I mean, I go to her soccer games, I go to her ballet recitals, we've gone on vacation together, but going to the store together is what she wrote about when she wrote about her special person, and
Mhm.
it's like I know, it's just like we think, "Gosh, get in the car, we got to the grocery store, and then we can do this," and it's really the small things, and actually,
Mhm.
just now I remembered since I had such a big family, we didn't do anything extravagant ever, and, like, we, like, didn't even fly. I left the country for the first time when I was 30, and, so it's just, like, a lot of different ways to grow up, but I remember, like, some of my favorite childhood memories are, like, my mom would take us on a park crawl, like, that was,
Mhm.
like, so fun and easy where, like, we would all pick a park we wanted to go to, and we would do, like, 20 minutes at 5 different parks, and we would, like, get in the car and drive to different
Oh,
parks.
that's so funny. What a
I
good
know.
idea. That just
Isn't
makes
that
it a little bit different.
yeah, and I literally still when I drive home to my parents' house, I have that memory of when I got to pick that park that we had to drive to. Like, I pass it and I'm like, because we never could walk there, but so, like, on the park crawl day, like, I picked that park and I look at it and I'm like, "That is, like" it's the same park, it's just it's so small, and there was just this one rock climbing wall that's, like, 4 feet tall, but I, like, remember, like, feeling so special that I got to pick that one, and I even, like, can like, it's one of my clearest memories that I can look over at my mom, like, who was, like, in the car, like, probably, like, working or I don't know what she was doing, and, she was like I was, like, looking to make sure it wasn't time to leave yet because I was so happy. I don't even remember playing, I just remember being so happy that I got to pick that one part.
Oh, I love that. What a special memory. And you're just reminding me, I created a few ideas of summer traditions because little things like that really are just so incredible for kids. I love hearing your story. I'm like smiling over here just listening to you.
Oh, maybe I'll share this on the internet then.
Oh, definitely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you for making the time on your family vacation. As always, I love having you.
Yay. Thank you. I love being on. Thanks so much for having me too.
Yay.